This is Creating Your Encore Career and Becoming a Silver Entrepreneur with your host, Lynn Freest. Lynn will share ideas and expert advice from people that are walking in your shoes and living their encore careers, where they want and at the pace they want. You'll start a company of one with confidence and knowledge to live a fulfilled life of freedom and ease. Lynn is a coach and leadership consultant whose mission is to show senior leaders and experts how to start something refreshing and new after a full career in the corporate environment.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of Navigating Transitions and Creating Your Encore Life. This is where you can learn to do what you love, when you want, and where you want. You can create and live your dream. And if you're ready to get started right away, please contact me at lynn@lynnfreest.com. You can also get my free guide, How to Navigate Life's Transitions. The link will be in the show notes. So this is going to be a replay of a wonderful episode I did with John Tarnoff on Boomer Reinvention. John had a long career in the entertainment business, but after his tech startup went bust, he decided to go back and earn a master's degree in spiritual psychology. So from there, he started focusing on being a career coach, author, speaker, and now his mission is to support professionals over the age of 50 to redefine, build, and sustain their second act careers. And John wrote the book on it. It's called Boomer Reinvention, How to Create Your Dream Career Over 50. So here are the few of the things we talk about with John. Some of the myths of boomer workers. Why freelance work can be a great fit. Why do you need to find a tribe or a network as you enter an encore career? Why, even with a W-2 job, you should think of yourself as a freelancer. And then the importance of patience and persistence in working independently. Okay, welcome, John, and thank you for appearing on the podcast and sharing your wisdom with my audience. So, like in all my shows, I'd like you to start off by sharing what your story is, your background, and some of what your journey's been.
First of all, Lynn, thank you so much for inviting me on. I'm a big fan, and we are members of this Encore Career Fraternity, and it is a great pleasure to finally get on the call with you. So with that said and out of the way, I am a executive and career transition coach. I specialize in working one-on-one with senior level professionals, most of them approaching or over 50, who are looking to extend their careers past traditional retirement, create more meaningful and sustainable careers, and push back against this ageist force that is trying to push older people out of the workforce just at the point when we are coming into our greatest ability to contribute to the economy and to the society.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And again, and the fact is the world needs us too.
You bet.
Of course, I remember back early in my career, technology was much smaller then, but I remember I had a boss that said, Lynn, you know more technology than I do, but that just means you can make bigger mistakes faster.
I love that line. That's great.
He says, there's a role for wisdom here. I've always remembered that.
And I think the important thing to remember is that we want this to be a multi-generational workforce, right? This is not about one generation versus another generation, or boomers are better than millennials or Gen Xers or Gen Zs. This is about all of us pulling together and providing our respective strengths to produce more value, create better lives, more abundance, and better results more effectively across every business, every generation. I don't countenance any millennial bashing in my practice, just as I don't countenance any boomer bashing. And I think we all have something to contribute.
Yeah, and it may be in different roles. I know when I talk to people, I'm encouraging them to own your expertise, but then be humble enough to be a student too. And obviously, people who are fluent in technology can teach you a lot. So
that's right.
Be open to that.
Look, I think there's a tremendous amount of innovation coming out of the younger generations. There always has been. And when we were younger, we were providing innovation because each generation is born at a different time and understands the world from those fresh eyes. And that's a really important perspective for everyone to take note of and really get behind.
Yeah. And I remember, again, when I was still working full time, they hit the 2008 recession. And all of a sudden, some of the people were saying, what's this all about? Some of the people have never seen a recession before. All of a sudden we said, well, don't worry, we're going to work through this. But yeah, often people see things for the first time. But conversely, so do we. So
that's right.
Technology.
That's right. And the differences and the diversity goes across all sectors. There are plenty of people who are over 50, who are as vital and as innovative, asking questions, behaving like kindergartners, just as there are people in their 20s who are locked in. They don't want to be adventurous. They don't want to go outside of the color outside the lines. It really is an individual personality trait. It's not so much a generational thing.
Also with traits, I'd like to circle back. And John, you've got an amazing career, and it's a very different career than I'm used to in corporate life. But I think your career, the Hollywood experience, some of that may be more what work life is like in the future.
It's interesting. I never thought that I was going to wind up doing what I'm doing in this second act. But in retrospect, it kind of makes a lot of sense because, as you say, my corporate background was in the Hollywood executive suites. I was a film studio executive for most of my career, with stints out in the field, I guess, as a producer of specific movies. And then in the 90s, I took this strange sabbatical off into the technology world. I got all fired up around CD-ROM games and the interactive storytelling process, and made a couple of titles. And then partner and I started a company in the bubble, and we were doing some really innovative work with artificial intelligence and behavioral animation. So we were doing Siri before there was Siri. We had this pattern recognition, neuro-linguistic programming, a natural language, artificial intelligence engine, and a behavioral animation engine. So we were creating animated characters that you could talk to online, and doing this over dial-up, which was pretty innovative and crazy at the time. And we did really well. I'm kind of like going off into the weeds with this little story. And in 2001, the market crashed. Our deals went away. Our investors closed up shop. And my partner and I, at our peak, we had about 50 people in a warehouse in Venice, California, cranking this stuff out. And we had this big deal with a big telecom company making some customer service characters for their website and companies that we were working for. And at the end, it was just him and me, back down, just the two of us working together and trying to keep this thing afloat. And he walks into my office one day and he says, I guess the future's gone out of style. And that kind of described the end of the tech bubble in 2001. Mm-hmm. It was a crazy ride. And just getting back to the ways in which, and we were talking about this before we got on the recording, the ways in which Hollywood was prescient towards the rest of the economy. In my Hollywood career, so over kind of the 35-year main part of my Hollywood career from the mid-'70s to about 2010, when I left DreamWorks Animation and I went off into this consulting, ultimately coaching a second act career, I had about 18 jobs. So that's a little bit more than 2 years per job on average. Now, some of these were short-term consulting gigs, films that I produced, et cetera. And some of these were jobs that I was going from one job to another. I quit and went on to another job. But 7 of these 18 jobs, I got fired. And so I like to joke about the fact that in my Hollywood career, I was fired 39% of the time. And you chuckle and people chuckle about this, and it's a nervous laugh because it's like, who talks about this, right? Who talks about being fired a certain percentage of your time? You don't want to talk about getting fired. That's supposed to be humiliating. And I talk about it for just that reason, for the idea that in the economy as it has become, it's not about doing something wrong. It's not about doing something shameful. It's not about you pissed off your boss or you sloughed off and they fired you. It's about fit. Mm-hmm. And in an economy that's changing so fast, as we are certainly experiencing, you've got to understand that you may not stay the right fit for that company forever. It's not that kind of steady state world that it used to be.
Yeah, we're all having to reinvent ourselves as companies themselves are having to reinvent themselves. But that's why I think that idea in Hollywood where you have to pull together all the pieces to make a show or do whatever you're going to do.
Right.
That's just becoming the norm now is we pull together the pieces to create some value.
Yeah. It's a very freelance-oriented business on the production side. And as a result, people need to be very resilient and they need to use their network. So in my 35 years, I never applied to a job by sending somebody a resume. It was always through network. And if I was out of work, those 7 jobs I got fired from, I picked myself up off the floor. I got on the phone. I called my network. I said, I'm available. What's going on? And people would say, call this person, call that person, have lunch with this person. Let me set you up. And because it's a tight-knit series of networks that are all based on value, where you have a reputation based on what you've done, what you can do, staying up to speed on your skills, on your knowledge, on your abilities to collaborate and contribute. That is your stock and trade. And it is just the same way now in the broader economy, as the broader economy is adapting to this freelance, entrepreneurial, consultant-based mindset versus the 9-to-5, show up at your job, keep your nose clean, color within the lines mindset.
Yeah. And expanding on that, when I talk from my perspective, these corporate leaders and stuff, as you move forward, you don't have to know everything. You might say, I don't know this technology, or I don't know podcasting, or you have to know someone who knows it. And so you have to be your own little producer. You have to learn how to pull together the pieces that you need so that you can stay in your zone of value or zone of genius. But you're going to hire some stuff done, but it won't be a whole bunch of full-time employees. It'll be pieces of people.
A question I get a lot, I actually was getting this question when I was at DreamWorks Animation and I had started their college outreach program, because we realized that we needed to actually start training people from scratch in the company, that a lot of the existing animation talent, artistic and technical, really wasn't cutting it. And we were having a hard time finding enough experienced people that we could hire into these positions as we were growing the company. So we started this college outreach program. And one of the questions that I used to get a lot from the faculty at the schools that we went out to, and at the height of it, we had 40 schools in our network that we were drawing from. People say, are you looking for specialists or are you looking for generalists? And I thought about this a lot, and I didn't initially have an answer for it. But what I came to understand, what I started saying to people was, we're looking for either specialized generalists or generalized specialists. And I think this goes to the point that you're making about not knowing everything, but having some sense of how to get stuff done. And as a specialist, you want to know what's going on in the contiguous areas of responsibility that you're involved in so that you can actually play some of these other roles and fill in where necessary. And similarly, as a generalist, you want to have 1 or 2 areas that you're pretty specialized in so that your reputation is really focused in on some kind of value that you are known to be able to produce. It's a really interesting time where I think we have to, in everything that we're doing, develop a niche for ourselves, something that we can basically hang our hat on and say, this is what I do, this is who I do it for, this is the result you're going to get. And that is the work that I do best, that I most enjoy doing, and I'm looking for help in finding an outlet for that skill, that talent that I have.
Yep.
And that is the primary recommendation that I have for my clients and for people who are looking for jobs, looking to grow their careers, transition their careers in today's economy, is to really focus on that value proposition and use your network to connect to people who will understand it, who will be in the same tribe as you, get the value of it, and be able to either hire you or refer you to opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, one of the things I encourage people to do, again, because people like myself in the corporate world, we're used to thinking ourselves in terms of titles, positions, all those kinds of things. Say, go back and look over, 5-year segments of your career. Where was something you really enjoyed? You really added value? What were the activities? But break it down. It wasn't the title. You did something. And what was that?
Absolutely. And that goes to the mistake that I think a lot of people make on their LinkedIn profiles, which is they put their job title in their headline. And that is, I think, a real mistake, because that just ties you into the work that you're doing right now with that company. And it doesn't really explain what you do.
Yeah. Could you maybe go over some of the steps you've taken people through that have come to work with you?
Sure. So I like to think of myself as a personal development coach who applies that framework to career development. And I look at career development really as this inside out process rather than what we typically identify it as, which is like an outside in process. And so by that, I mean, our typical response to, oh, I need a job or I need to change jobs is to look at all of the open job positions that we can find out there on job boards and think, okay, which of these positions can I do? How can I fit myself into this one? Are my skills appropriate? Are enough of my skills appropriate? Do my experiences map with the requirements that they are stating in the job description? And my view is that's the completely wrong way to go about doing it. Because what you're trying to do there is you're trying to shoehorn yourself into someone else's idea of what they think they want. And for those of you on the call who have had the misfortune to be asked to create a job description for an open position that's happened in your department, and you will know that this is one of the worst tasks that we can ever be asked to do. It's the worst pain in the ass to have to do this. You'll remember that it's not your proudest piece of work, that job description. It just attempts to describe what you think the job is going to be. In reality, you'll know that person when they walk in your door and when you have a conversation with them. And you may look at their resume, look at the job description, say, they've actually got 3 of the qualifications that I listed on that job description, but damn, they're good. And I'm hiring them and they're going to work great in our department. And sure enough, they do.
Yeah.
So by trying to adhere to someone else's job description, you're digging yourself into a hole that you may never get out of.
I was going to say my experience in the corporate world was when I got to the interview, we never seemed to talk about what the job description was. It was always something else.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It was all about you and them and the fit and the work and the vision and the sense of, can you accomplish what the department needs to get done?
Yeah. And I think, as you say, is in your encore career, as you go out, people don't know you. They don't even care about your position probably. So you really have to start asking them questions. What are they looking for? What's important to them? Because you have to see, can you add value to what they need?
I think you're kind of scratching at the dark underbelly of career search over 50, which is that pretty much, I don't want to say every case, but in many cases. And I see these stories time and time again. Someone will post some kind of viral post on LinkedIn and people go off about their experiences of being passed over, turned down, demeaned, really, and excluded for jobs that they are perfectly qualified for because of ageism.
Yeah,
absolutely. And so this is a real problem. And interestingly now, February 2022, I'm seeing a lot of press on this question of how the Great Resignation is playing with older workers. And is this now the time when companies are going to open their eyes to the value of older workers, the dependable nature of older workers, the intentional nature of older workers as a solution to all of the job loss that's going on and the open positions that are out there? Because younger workers, and I certainly have no problem with someone going off to find a better life for themselves, finding more meaning and purpose in their career. I think that's great. But there are a lot of older workers out there who have found their meaning and purpose, who are willing to work long hours, to be loyal to a company, to fulfill the mission of the company, and are being denied that opportunity because of their age. So this is all the more reason why going through the front door, through the job application process, is a fruitless task, particularly for older workers, even in a better economy. And the way to go around it is to focus on establishing your value proposition and using your network to connect to the people who understand that and can refer you to the open positions.
Yeah, and I encourage people to consider the idea of coaching too for the younger workers. So companies are slowly coming around to the idea, hey, we've got a lot of brand new talent here, but we need to help them develop. In many cases, as we go to find talent from new areas, they're not coming in with the background that maybe the talent had before, which was similar to us, whatever that might be. Their background is different. So we need to provide them with some additional resources to help them understand what the work is that we're trying to do.
I think that's a good point.
And again, in that coaching arena and some of that, because I think of the Encore career people, they often don't want to go back into a 50-hour-a-week job. They kind of want to work when they want, where they want, and do only that work that they really love. So they may not want to get into a huge management position either. They may want to say, no, I'll come back, but I'm just going to do logistics or whatever their particular interest and passion is. And I don't know, I think the pandemic has given us all a wake-up call. I think it unfroze a lot of habits and assumptions about where work got done and how it got done. So I think there's an opportunity anyway.
I agree. I think actually this should be a fantastic time for older workers who are looking to create more meaningful job experiences for themselves because we have this flexibility and we can work the kinds of hours that we want to work and from the locations where we want to work. It really should be to our advantage to participate in this economy. And maybe there is some warming up going on. I would hope so. It really should work in our favor, all of this remote hybrid work stuff that's going on.
Oh, I agree. And, there are examples. I read the book by Chip Connolly on wisdom at work, where the Airbnb guys said, we don't know much at all about the hospitality business. Let's go get this guy who's actually done that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a tremendous case to be made for the consulting mindset being brought to bear here for those of us who are over 50, who have lots to contribute. And again, this goes to the idea of niching down to what your specialty is, because if you take this approach where you've got your niche, you're the specialized generalist in that niche, and you're now in a position, if you take this consultant mindset, which is you think of your work as providing value to a client, as opposed to the employee mindset, which is working under the direction of a manager. So if you make that paradigm shift, even if you're working in a W-2 job for a manager, you want to think of yourself as that 1099 consultant who is looking to provide greater value, looking to be proactive about how they can educate and guide the client or the manager to deriving more value, and use your niched experience and wisdom and apply it to be more effective in that role.
Yeah. I think another thing that, people in the Encore career world provide is their experience with people, whether it be they've seen the ups, the downs, the pluses, the minuses. They've just had more experience working with people. And I think, again, some people who are new in their careers, they haven't had as much of that experience yet. The value may come because I've seen a lot of mistakes or made a lot of mistakes.
Yeah. No, I think you're absolutely right. The one thing I would say, though, about experience in all areas, whether it is experience with subject matter expertise, whether it is experience with network, having a great, book of contacts, I think one of the things that can really help us be most effective at this point in our lives is humility, and to not feel like we've got it all figured out. We've got it all dialed in. We've been in this business for 40 years. We know what's what. We got the big book of business. We've made the big deals. It's really not going to win us any points with the younger generations who may be intimidated by that. They may feel like it may have been relevant 20 years ago, but it's not relevant today. And just the attitude can sour what would otherwise be a really fruitful collaborative relationship. So I think it's really up to us to take a step back, to do more listening than we do talking, to take on a beginner's mindset, to try to bring this sense of discovery and awe and wonder into the work that we do, as opposed to the sense that We're experts. We know what's what. We're here to tell people how to get it done. Be there as a servant leader and help people discover their own wins and support them in that. But don't tell them what to do.
Yeah. There's a marvelous gentleman, Edgar Schein, that wrote some books called Humble Inquiry and Humble Consulting. And that was the very thing. He says, you may have expertise and you need to own that and value it, but you need to go in and they can't use your solution, as brilliant as it might be. You have to help them understand what their solution is going to be.
Exactly. And this is the essence of mentoring, is to help people come up with their own solution. And all you have to do is start by listening and by looking them straight in the eye and giving them your full attention and letting them come to their own conclusion. And then they'll probably look at you and go, wow, you really helped me out. And you say, all I really did was listen to you and encourage you and support your own resourcefulness. And they'll say, whatever you did, it was great. And I thank you. And can I see you again next week?
Yeah, I've done a fair amount of executive coaching in my time. And I often told them, I says, you have to connect your own dots. Now, I said, I can share some new dots for you to look at, but you have to connect them. And then, as you said, some of my most successful coaching engagements, I barely said a word.
That's right. And this is maybe the dirty little secret, is that we don't have to work as hard as we think we have to work to be far more effective than we might have been when we were working 18 hours a day.
Yep, that's true. So other things that occur to you as far as helping people get started in this journey?
The one thing that I ask everyone to do when they come to work with me in coaching is to start a daily journal. And I don't know if you've read a book, been around for a long time, called The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron.
I have.
This is one of the most significant experiences I had, and working in a creative industry, was to read that book. And I'm inspired by her morning pages concept to adapt that in a much more reduced way to help people achieve the same effect that she talked about in the book, which is really to use this stream of consciousness longhand process to connect your conscious mind with your unconscious mind. And there's actually a good body of research about how we solve difficult problems unconsciously. And the conscious mind is great for solving clear, numeric, quantitative problems. I need to go to the market. I need to go to the hardware store. I need to pick up my kid at band practice. I need to go to the store and buy something for the party we're going to tonight. And I got to remember to call about whatever those things are, all the logistics. That's great on the conscious level. But if you're thinking about, what am I going to do with my life for the next 6 months? How am I going to upgrade my career? What are some of the strengths that I need to talk about that I have not used, that I've not leveraged before in my conversations with recruiters or hiring managers? That conversation goes on unconsciously. And if you are in communication with your unconscious through this daily, brief journaling process, you're going to build a connection to that inspiration inside you that is going to supply some of the most insightful and exciting and intentional prescriptions for you to follow to help you fulfill your career dreams.
Absolutely. Yeah, I haven't done it in Julia Cameron's way quite that, but I've done it with some writing prompts. And it's amazing, once it comes out on paper, how your thinking improves, I guess.
Yes.
There's something about rolling around in my head. My thinking doesn't get clear, but once I start writing it does.
It's amazing. And not every entry, not every day is a brilliant connected day.
No.
And I go through plenty of kind of blah, blah days where I'm just trying to piece together what my schedule is going to be and what I'm pissed off about or what was in my dream or whatever. And it's not going anywhere. And I think, oh, okay, it's just one of those days. And then another day I'll start off and it's, oh God, I'm writing a stupid journal again and this and that, complain. And then all of a sudden something just pops in when I'm least expecting it, out of my peripheral vision, as it were. And I think, oh my God, I hadn't thought about that. Or here's someone that I need to contact. Or, oh, I could call this person to solve this problem. My God, why didn't I think of this the other day? So you can't control it. in that sense. You just have to be open to it. And if you are open to it and allow the magic to take place in its own time and its own form, you can really benefit from it.
Yeah. And I think, again, people in the Encore career space, they usually can have some time to do that, or at least they can carve out a little bit of time to start thinking, hey, I'm going to have to plan or think through this or plan or get some new ideas, those kinds of things. So at least most of the people at least appreciate that, even though they find it hard to, if you're still working to fit it in. But
yeah, I think if you can I do one page a day in a Moleskine size notebook, 5.5 by 8.5. It's not a lot of work. I can bang this out in 5 minutes if I'm inspired, 15 minutes if I'm lolling around with it. And I think most of us can spare either first thing in the morning, last thing at night, 5 to 15 minutes to settle our thoughts and get into a little bit of a meditative state to support our career process and really our life process, the equanimity that we want to achieve, particularly at this stage of life.
Yeah, one of the advantages I've found is I can rant in the journal and then it helps get rid of it for me.
Yes, absolutely.
Because otherwise I keep it with me and leaves me upset all day long or whatever.
Yep. Yeah, you want to offload all of those thoughts, right?
What are some of the people, some of the experiences? I know your book has a great number of examples in there. What are some of the experiences you found with people that have reinvented themselves?
There are a bunch of fun stories. The story that I like to talk about from the book a lot is a profile on a guy named John Pugliano, who was industrial products salesman for most of his career and who turned a hobby, a lucrative hobby, into a lucrative second act. And in my interview with him, he talked about how when he was a kid, he was just fascinated by the financial pages in the newspaper. You remember when there were newspapers and there were financial pages. And I used to go back to whatever that section was, that third section. And in the back, there were all those charts from the New York Stock Exchange and all of those share prices going up and down. And it was a puzzle that he just loved. But he never thought of himself as being in the finance business. He was a sales guy and he spent his entire career in sales. But he had a big family, so he wanted to invest wisely. So he was, as soon as Schwab came online with their telephone-based service, he had a Schwab account. He was trading on a Schwab account and building up a portfolio for his family. And at one point, I think in the 1990s, one of his colleagues came to him and said, look, I'd like you to invest my retirement savings. And he said, I'm not allowed to do that. And she said, I talked to my lawyer, I've got this agreement and I'm allowing you to do it and you're fine. So sure enough, he invested her portfolio and did very well managing her portfolio. But then when he got fired during the recession, he turned around and was thinking about going back out and trying to get another sales gig. And I believe it was his wife who said to him, John, you should become a financial advisor. You've grown our portfolio enormously. And he said, I hate the financial services business. I hate those people. I don't trust those advisors. I would never work in one of those firms. And she said, I'm not talking about you going to work Schwab or Fidelity or whomever. You should be an advisor. And so he thought, okay. And he checked into the credentialing process, realized that he could sit for his exams and hang out his own shingle, which is what he wound up doing. Mm-hmm. And he's still doing it. He's doing very well. But one of the most interesting aspects of his new career, and this goes to being an entrepreneur in the digital age, is that he started a podcast. And the reason that he started a podcast was because he read some article, some opinion piece by one of these top financial writers, and he thought it was a total piece of doo-doo and completely wrong. And he kept looking for rebuttals, and no one was rebutting this article. So he thought, I'm going to do something. I'm going to write something. And he had a friend who had an audio studio, and he had some familiarity with this. He thought, no, screw this. I'm going to record a podcast. I'm going to record an episode, and I'm going to put it out there. He posted it up on Apple, and then he had another idea. So long story short, he starts doing these regular podcast episodes. Within about a year, he's like in the top 10 of financial services podcasts on iTunes.
Wow.
And he was doing a blog regularly. What he realized was that this was a perfect vehicle for marketing his business because he had a record of what his opinions and predictions were about where the market was going, about how to invest. And when people would come to him and basically say, so how do I know if you're the right guy for me to invest my portfolio? And he would say, read my blog, listen to my podcasts. If over the last year, what I've written about and talked about resonates with you, then we should work together.
Absolutely. Wow.
And that's, I think, one of the most powerful reminders to all of us who are getting older, have expertise, want to put that expertise to work. We have amazing opportunities to demonstrate the value of what we know and what we can provide through the electronic broadcast outlets that are at our disposal and pretty much free to us. So a lot of what I do in the work with my career coaching clients comes to me because of opportunities like this one, where I'm online talking to you, where people read my blog posts, where they read articles that I curate on LinkedIn. They get a sense of how I think, how I approach things, what my methodology is. And it helps them get a sense of, okay, so this resonates with me, and maybe I can take advantage of this and call this guy up, and maybe we can work together.
Well, incidentally, too, I've enjoyed your first LinkedIn Live that you did here a couple of weeks ago, and looking forward to seeing the next one.
Thanks. We're going to be doing this I'm not sure exactly when this is going to get broadcast, but hopefully this is continuing to go on. I have this bi-weekly live show that I'm doing with Carrie Hannon, who is this amazing author and journalist and one of the premier people in the second act career space. She's written a dozen or more books on careers, and it's just a delight. And we're going to talk about the second act. We're going to talk about with a bunch of experts, but we're going to try to kind of get under their skin and not really talk about the expertise, but talk about their hearts and souls and what's keeping them up at night, and have fun with this and hopefully inspire and inform people about what next steps they can take for their second act careers.
Yeah. Again, the technology is really marvelous about allowing for that to happen in today's world. So,
yep, it's amazing.
You got to find an 18-year-old that'll help you with the technology, and you're fine.
I can do it.
Oh, okay.
Lynn, we're the digital founders. Right?
I know.
We came up with all this stuff.
Yeah, that is true. So we just have to keep after it.
That's right.
And that whole lifelong learning thing. And again, I think it was Linda Grattan or somebody, they did the book on the 100-year life. So whether we last that long, I'm not sure, but certainly people are. So we're maybe the boomers are on the cutting edge of some new things that are going to be happening in the world, and we can blaze the trail.
Yeah. I think this idea of the 100-year life is interesting, not so much because of the idea that we will live to be 100, but what if we're going to live to be 100, or if we were to live to be 100, how would we be living today? That's the point of it, is to think of your life as a 100-year life. So if I'm 60 or 50 or 70, where am I in this equation, and how am I living today? My life is certainly not over. My life is just right in the middle. I'm just cresting the wave. I've got plenty of time left to make an impact. I can still start a business at a later stage, because it takes no time to start a business today. Inside of 5 years, I could build that business, and I've sold that business and still have another 20 years left to do more stuff.
Yeah. So it's just the creativity, the opportunities are there. And so I think, again, the world will be changing all the time. And this is an exciting time to be here.
Yep. Change is a guarantee.
What was it? I just heard somebody say, the change has never been this fast, and it'll never be this slow again.
I love that. That's great. Yeah.
John, again, I want to really thank you for this opportunity, and we'll be sharing your contact information, the link to your book, any other things that you want to have in the notes for the show notes. We'll have people have a way to contact you.
It's really easy to contact me. It's johntarnoff.com and is the website, and you can just search for me on LinkedIn with John Tarnoff and contact me through the website or on LinkedIn. And I'm here for anyone who wants to chat or ask me questions about what they can do with their career, if they want to work with me or not. I'm open. I love to hear about people's stories and help people along the way.
Thank you. And look forward. Maybe we'll have opportunities to work again on this. And
I would love it. Lynn, it's been great. Thank you for doing this podcast. This is great. It's helping people and giving people the confidence they need to keep going and to feel that what they do matters and is worthwhile. and achievable.
Well, again, thank you. So with that, have a good rest of your day. Well, again, many thanks to John for sharing his journey and help that he provides for people. Again, some of the topics we covered were myths of boomer workers, why freelance work can be a great fit, why you need to find a tribe or a network as you approach an encore career, and why even with a W-2 job, you should think of yourself as a freelancer. Well, again, John's resources are in the show notes. I encourage you to look at his website as well as his book. I found it a fascinating book. Now, I have an additional opportunity for a short time. For those who want to stand out online and add new streams of income, Mike Kim is putting on a special webinar. It's how to turn your expertise into an income ecosystem that overflows with cash. And that's going to be on December 5th. There's, again, a registration link in the show notes. I encourage you to try that out. Well, with an encore life, you can be creating value in the world beyond just winning that next pickleball game. You can do the work you love when you want and where you want. You can live your dream. So if you're ready to get started today, head over to linfrias.com. You can listen to a few of my podcasts, and you can get on the email list. So look forward to talking to you soon.